Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Real Talk, Generation X and Y and Race in America, a virtual conversation between young women of color as they navigate through the emotional impact of systemic racism following recent racial injustices. This discussion is presented by Shades Magazine, celebrating all women of color and exceptional women in publishing, which is also known as EWIP. My name is Michelle FITZHUGH-CRAIG, and I'm the president of the EWIP board of directors and the publisher founder of Shades Magazine. Before we get started, I'd like to get some housekeeping matters out of the way. Our producers have muted your mic. However, if it is not, please be sure to do so now. For those who are new to Zoom or don't use it that often, you can find the tools bar at the top of your screen or hovering your mouse along the bottom of your screen. There you can find the chat room and other tools you may need or want during today's talk. If you have comments or questions for today's guest, you may place them in the chat room and they will be read by today's host. Please be sure to include your name and city, and you can choose to have it read anonymously. Just mark that or note that. Feel free to disable your video if you so choose. We also have a lot of viewpoints that will be shared today. A reminder to be respectful of all guests and participants. Because of the sensitive nature of today's topic, we have asked registered associate marriage and family therapist, Christy Morales-Kumasawa, to join us. Christy is the co-chair of the Filipino Mental Health Initiative, a Shades Magazine contributing editor, and an EWIP board member. It is important to note Shades Magazine and its fiscal sponsor, Women in Periodical Publishing, which is Exceptional Women in Publishing, is a non-political, non-partisan organization, and as an entity does not support or endorse any political candidates or campaigns. The opinions, viewpoints, and/or personal endorsements expressed in any published print, audio, or video content, like today, are those of the individual and only, and do not necessarily represent the views of Shades Magazine or Exceptional Women in Publishing. We are recording today's session for viewing on the Shades website and on our YouTube channel, which will be available next week. Now let's get started. I'd like to turn it over to today's host and moderator. Sydney Clark is a New Orleans native, is a multimedia freelancer and current graduate student at the University of Maryland, College Park. She's studying multi-platform journalism. Sydney is also a contributing editor for Shades Magazine. Welcome, Sydney, I can talk today. Usually Lindsay's here, but she's off for the day, so I've taken over that role. Sydney, to you.
Thanks, Michelle, and I want to welcome everyone for today's discussion. So today we're going to talk how some of our #RealTalk crew members are coping with trauma during these uncertain times. As we know, this year has brought several changes and challenges to us all. So we've decided to provide our young women to take part in this safe space, candid conversation about how they're just navigating our ever-changing world. And we hope those in attendance will join us in the discussion with questions, knowledge, and even learn something today. So I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. We have THERESA BERTINI. She's a senior assistant director of admissions at Springwell College in Mobile, Alabama, living in Chicago. We have SHARKISHA CUMMINS as a stay-at-home mother of 2 and aspiring writer, social worker who lives in Rochester, New York. We have DOMINIQUE. She's an English teacher at Murphy High School in Mobile, Alabama. And we have MIGNON BLANC. She's an imaging account manager with GE Healthcare based in Los Angeles. And then, of course, we have Christy Morales-Kumasawa, who is joining us today as our licensed therapist. Thank you so much, ladies. All right, let's begin. So my opening reflection question to panelists is, who's your go-to person or people when you're having a rough time?
My go-to people are my husband and my sisters. They're like my rocks, pretty much do any and everything. Like, I can't even imagine not having them, like, just to be there.
Awesome.
Mine are my parents and then my boyfriend. We've been together now for about 2.5 years, but we've known each other for 10. We went to high school together and reconnected. And it's nice to have someone that, you know, understands the way that anxiety or, you know, issues trigger each specific person. So, you know, I just definitely appreciate having people that understand anxiety, but on a level that is also specifically personal to myself.
For me, it definitely would be my husband and then my mom. My mom is kind of my go-to person for everything. So those are my two go-to people whenever I just kind of need someone to talk to or need to talk something through. I go to them.
Awesome.
And my go-to people are definitely my friend group, my group of our 5 best friends. Anytime there's any sort of issue, I text that group message as soon as possible saying, hey guys, okay, I need your opinions. Candid opinions, what's going on? I need to tell you how I feel, and I feel supported every single time. My girlfriends, by far my go-tos.
I would have to agree with Mignon. We happen to be in the same friend group. So even though we're all busy, we still find time to like chat. And whenever we're going through something, you know, we send a message and all of us like reply really rapidly. And, you know, we just check in with each other and just be there for each other. But in addition to that, I would have to say my mom. I think especially because I went out of state for school for college, like I think we've built like a much like closer bond. It's made me like miss home more when I'm away. And so being in DC, obviously that distance has, you know, increased. So we talk often, and my birthday's coming up. So it's actually on election day. So she's been sending me like mini care packages. So it warms my heart to, you know, just receive those from her. So yeah, we talk all the time. Alrighty, so our next question is, trauma is this massive and complex thing, but how would each of you define or describe trauma?
If I had to define trauma, it would be something that is out of the ordinary, that interferes or kind of misaligns what you believe to be true about the world and your view of the world. And trauma, it's complicated because it looks different to so many people, right? Mm-hmm. One thing that might traumatize you may not traumatize the person next door. So that's why I think I put such like a personal touch to it, and like it's something that only you can define as traumatic, right? Or is identified by someone else as a potentially traumatic thing that can happen to you. And it's all about how it personally affects and changes your life and how you view the world.
Awesome.
This is kind of hard. I just looked it up on Google, I'm not gonna lie. And I kind of agree with the Google definition. It just says like a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. So I think the only thing that I don't necessarily agree with is that it's, you know, the word experience. I think trauma can come from more than just experiences. I think that, you know, you can, especially because of something that happened in your past, that experience, you can also be traumatized in the future. So yeah, I like the definition. It also says physical injury, which is another way that's kind of interesting to think about it, because it could be physical, but it's a mental injury in a way that you have to get through, whether that's, you know, with a psychiatrist or a doctor, or that's with a teacher or mentor of some sort.
Awesome. I agree with you. And something that I would add is that trauma isn't an isolated event. It's something that has lasting effects for years to go on. Trauma isn't, oh, I hurt my elbow, or somebody was mean to me this one day. It's, I was emotionally distressed, and it is causing me trouble in the future or moving forward. It's changed my actions. It has altered my pattern of the way I think of things or the way I react to things. So it's definitely something that's lasting and not an isolated event, for sure. It's an important part of the definition.
Yeah, I do agree that with trauma, it can even have like impacts where you don't even realize you've been traumatized. It's just like it's something that can happen, and in the moment, it's just your body reacts to it, and you don't even realize that you've just had something change you. And sometimes you can see the change right away. Sometimes it can be triggered by something like decades later. It can interfere with like creating relationships or how you react to situations in that relationship. For example, if you were, for example, in an abused relationship and you got out of that, and now you're in a healthy relationship, there could be something that is so minor, but you are tense and you're afraid of a reaction, and it's because you have not dealt with, you know, what happened to you in that last relationship. So your trauma is like bleeding out and impacting you in all these different ways. So yeah, I agree with all of you.
Thank you guys for sharing. And so I want to go into some personal stories, if you feel comfortable. We know 2020 has been a year. We're almost at the end of it. Thank you, Lord. Are there any specific events that happened this year that triggered you or challenged you in any way? And if you feel comfortable, please share with us.
I'll start. So this time last year, I miscarried. We weren't trying or anything, and I was on birth control. And my friend's like, your ankles look really swollen. I was like, no, they're not. She's like, are you pregnant? I was like, no. And then I came home and I was like vacuuming and I almost fainted. I was like, no, I'll take a pregnancy test, whatever. And then I was like, I walked away and I came back and I was like, oh, you're pregnant. I was like, oh my gosh. And so like the next day we went to urgent care, my husband and I, and we sat in there. Well, not urgent care, we went to the ER because like I called and they're like, because of the birth control you're on, like if you are pregnant, it's most likely going to be ectopic. So you need to go and see what's going on immediately. And so we were there for 5 hours, which was kind of traumatizing in itself. And they're like, well, you miscarried, right? And so like in that moment, we're like, yay, we're not pregnant. But then it was like, wow, like there was life inside of me that's not there anymore. And like, I don't think I coped with it very well. I think my brain was like, go back to work, go back to your internship, like go do what you're supposed to do. And it definitely changed me. Like the next week, my sister-in-law announced that she was pregnant. And that's when like, it kind of hit me like, oh my God, like this could have been me in a couple months, like, you know. And then my sister, a couple months later, announced that she was pregnant, and it kind of like re-triggered me. And that's what made me realize, like, man, I think it did impact me and my husband a lot more than, you know, we initially thought it did. So like that was a big, and I think that was a life-changing thing for me, especially this year, on top of COVID, on top of everything else that's happening. But that's like the one thing when you said that my mind immediately went to was how much that changed me, right? So that's my little piece of trauma.
Thank you so much, Dawn, for sharing.
I can go.
Yeah, like kind of similar to like what you went through. I went through very similar. You guys probably know, I've just had my baby, like she'll be 4 months at the end of this month. And when I was initially pregnant with her, we were actually having twins. And I guess what they say is that like a lot of the time, or 30% of the time when you're having twins, you lose one. But we didn't know that that was like that common. We went through IVF. So we found out fairly early that we were having twins. We were really excited. I mean, like it formed all of our decisions. Like we bought a bigger car. We like determined the size of the house we bought. And then when I was like 9 weeks pregnant, we went in for the ultrasound and we lost one of the babies. And that was probably, it's still really hard now, especially now that my daughter is here, because I always think like, you know, what would have happened if we had another baby? Would it have been a boy? Would it have been a girl? And then it was just, the pregnancy in and of itself was really difficult because like after losing the baby, I ended up having like a placental abruption. So like my placenta was pulling away from the lining of my uterus. So what ended up happening is when I was 7 months, I had to be hospitalized up until I went into labor. Because it's the middle of a pandemic, wait, was it 7 months? I think it was even sooner than that. Because it's the middle of the pandemic, I couldn't have visitors, so I couldn't have my son with me. And I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I am his world. And so because my husband works a lot, he wasn't even really in his own home. So it was like, on top of me being in the hospital away from him where he can't see me except for video calls, he's not even in his own home. And I was really struggling with the guilt of that, of like knowing that I need to be in a hospital to make sure the baby's okay and just wanting to be home with my son while he's in a whole different household for the majority of the time. And then having my daughter early, like a month and a half early, and then being back and forth in the hospital was just like, I'm still kind of feeling like, and I'm home now and they're both home and it's a great relief, but it's still so overwhelming, just like trying to find a new normal, which we still haven't quite got yet, but I mean, we're getting there, but yeah. And it's crazy because like, even though we lost the baby so early, I swear, like, I still hear like, and I know it doesn't make any sense, I swear I sometimes hear like a phantom cry, like of another baby crying, like there should be another baby here, even though there isn't. I still, every now and again, I'll like hear a baby crying and I'll be holding her and she's sleeping, but I hear a baby cry.
Thank you so much for sharing, Sharkisha. Mignon, you wanted to go next?
Yes, I was going to say that throughout the entire presidency this year and seeing how our president has navigated various social issues, it's been extremely disheartening. Seeing how this man can go about carrying himself in the way that he does consistently and no repercussions are seen, it frustrated me to my core, because it's like, what am I working so hard for if this man could be the president of the United States and do whatever the hell he wants to do? Why did I go to school so long? Why do I work so hard to be in the position that I am? Why am I still fighting for more for myself if somebody who's supposed to be in the most coveted position in the world does not respect it, can just do whatever they want? It's like, what am I here for? Why do I work so hard? If this man can do whatever he wants, what am I as a Black woman going to achieve? If this man can just, waltz his way through life with money and do unspeakable things to citizens of this country and not meet any repercussions, is just extremely frustrating. I go to work and I'm doing stuff and I'm like, what's the point? Why do I work so hard if I don't have to, or if other people don't have to get to where I'm trying to get? That's been one of the most frustrating things this entire year that has really, really got on my nerves and affected me to the core, especially when the whole tax thing came out. I was like, I pay so much money in taxes, so much. It's like, I thought I was making a good amount of money, and then I got to California and they were like, psych, I'm gonna take about a quarter of everything that you own, and you work so hard, but that's all right. It's just how it is. But the president of the United States can't abide by the same rules. It makes millions, billions more than me. And that's just, it's been so hard to keep myself motivated this year because of it. It's like, what's the point of working so hard if, less actions receive much more if you're a different color or a different gender? That's been something that's really been bothering me this year.
I appreciate you for sharing that, Mignon.
So, kind of just like what Mignon said, 2020 has just been the worst, really the worst. But I'm sorry, I laugh when there's like stuff that has traumatized me. It really started for me like January 1st, literally on the dot. So, New Year's Eve, everybody was so excited. The 2020 was going to be our year. And my parents are older. My dad is 76. And my mom called me New Year's Eve and said, you got to stop drinking. Your dad's not feeling very well. Just in case something happens, you need to be able to go home. And, you know, my parents are the type of people that they're like, they could put into perspective. When I studied abroad, my mom dropped me off and then contracted salmonella and was in the hospital in Germany and never told me. I found out like weeks later because she was like, didn't want you to worry. So that's the type of people, my parents are very selfless. So for my dad to say like, I'd like you to come home is a very big deal for me. And I'm an only child. So spent my midnight clinking champagne with my boyfriend from my childhood bedroom because, you know, I went home to take care of him. And the next day I went out for lunch with a couple of friends, was calling my dad every hour, just saying like, how are you? How are you? Called him that night and he said, actually, I'm not really feeling that well. He passed out on the phone with me. I heard the thud, you know, heard everything happen, had to call 911, tell them to bust our front door open. And like, luckily, you know, he's okay right now, but it's been so traumatic. That was terrible. I mean, that was horrible to have to be. I was the DNR for my dad at, I didn't even turn 24 yet. So at 23. So that was terrible. But also, you know, seeing people like going out to bars, going clubbing, going on these giant trips. And I'm like, you could kill my parents. And, you know, it's people that I thought I was good friends with. So that's been really hard. I've lost a lot of friends this year. Just from taking a step back and, you know, having to say, I can't be around you because by doing that, I'm putting my family's life in danger. You know, 2 weeks ago, one of my dad's very like closest friends died of COVID. He infected his mother. So then his mother died and my dad couldn't even go to the funeral. My dad just sat in his car as he watched everyone go into the funeral. So this whole year has been, you know, I will never be the same after this year. This year has changed me in ways for the better, but also, you know, I think I'm very cynical at a very young age. I think a lot of people are now, but, you know, I've become a lot more defensive towards my parents and a lot more protective just because of how, you know, selfish I'm seeing other people be. So I think, you know, January 1st itself was a traumatic event, but just, it's like, I can't even look at social media anymore. It just like triggers it because I see all these people doing normal stuff every day, not even understanding what severity they are doing to others. We're clearly not caring, but you know, that's for another day.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. And I just want to pause for a moment and just officially welcome Christy to our conversation. She's our therapist on board. So Christy, would you just like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your background?
Sure. Thank you, Sydney. I apologize for popping in late. Technical difficulties, as we, as many have experienced in this day and age of Zoom. I'm Christy Morales-Kumasawa. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a mental health clinician, or, you know, same thing as psychotherapist, counselor. I work for an agency in the San Francisco Bay Area called Star Vista. And I've worked with adults, but mainly now my passion is to work with children. So I've worked with kids K through 8. And continue to work with, right now I'm in a placement where I work with 3rd to 8th graders. I also do, in addition to my clinical practice or my clinical work, I do community advocacy around mental health education and awareness for San Mateo County. So basically the health system. And it's part of their Office in Diversity Equity arm that I work with. And so that's doing community education, outreach, workshops, you name it. And also taking a look at other ways of healing, because as we know, therapy, you know, it's a great mode of, for a lot of people for healing, but we also know that communities can heal in other ways. There are different ways to heal. You know, that's kind of the Western model. And you know, I know that for different people, different things work. So we incorporate sort of that idea as well as some education about some of our indigenous practices. I'm Filipinx, so how those can also be part of our healing. So I enjoy it because I get to do both, kind of like do things in my clinical practice, but also work with community and being able to make change in other ways. Thank you for having me, and it's nice to see everybody.
We're so happy to have you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And so I want to expand on my previous question, which is, different events this year that have triggered us. Is there any current events happening in your life that are making you feel anxious or stressed? And if you feel so called, you can expand upon that.
I don't know about anyone else, but like the whole like Supreme Court justice, and I'm super worried about that. The overturning of Roe versus Wade and like the protection of women's rights, that's like a big deal for me. I am extremely concerned about this upcoming election. It's just a few days away, but I just don't see, even if Trump does not lose in a landslide, and even if he does lose in a landslide, I can just see him being super problematic about it, inciting violence, did his dog whistle at the first debate. So I just don't see anything great coming out of it. I'm worried about the protection for my husband who's transgendered, how that will impact him, at work and just in his health and every aspect of it. So there are like all these things just sitting on my shoulders. Like if that does become, if they reverse like same-sex marriage, what does that do for my family dynamic? How does that impact our kids? So there are like all these things that are like on the horizon and then just all pending on this one election. So it's very stressful to say the least.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, like I myself am part of the LGBTQ community, and most of my friends are. Like I have more friends that are part of the community that aren't, rather than are not. My best friend is transgender, and I'm just really worried for my friends. Like I'm really, really worried for my friends. I'm worried about what rights could be taken away. I'm so worried about the election. I'm the same way as Sharkisha. Like I'm so worried. I have been losing sleep over it every time, which I know he's trying to help, but every time Joe Biden puts a tweet out that's like 15 days, 10 days, like he just posted 10 days. And I was like, stop. Like, it's stressing me out. And, I've already voted, and like, I'm so thankful that I live in Chicago where, there's a lot of people that are like-minded like myself, so I can talk to people and feel comfortable. But yeah, I'm really worried. I'm really worried about, my non-white friends. I'm really worried about there's so much to be worried about. And I completely agree. I think that if Trump doesn't win, he's going to go out kicking and screaming. And that is not only embarrassing, but also that will be, a life and world changing event. Whether he wins or loses, something's going to change, something's going to happen, and it's going to be a historic moment. So I'm hoping he doesn't do a countdown from 10 to 0 on Twitter, but yeah, it's been very, very stressful. It's been really scary.
Thanks so much, Theresa.
I agree. This election, I've been joking with myself, but internally, I think I'm a little bit serious about if Trump wins, I need an exit plan, some way to get out, because I'm like, all right, do I have enough money to make it through? If more COVID cases rise, we have to go on lockdown again. Is he just going to be so nuts that he's like, okay, it's about to be a dictatorship. I'm taking over or something like that. I don't know. Like, is there going to be a coup if, Biden wins and he's like, oh, I anticipated this and I'm going to take over everything. Like, those ideas are so far-fetched, but they're all running through my mind. Like, this man, he's completely unhinged. So either way it goes, some sort of violence is going to ensue, and it's going to be dangerous, because we've all seen how the rallies go and how the parades go and how it just turns into utter chaos. And I can only imagine when something is on such a global scale, such as this election, if he loses, oh my goodness. If he wins, oh my goodness. So just preparing for the unknown and just trying to sit back and be calm and do my job like nothing's going on, or, you know, see my friends like nothing is going on, even though I am concerned. I'm very far away from home. So will I be able to fly home to go see my family with the COVID cases rising and no new regulations in place? Will I be able to get on a plane to see my family? I don't really feel too positive about that right now. So I had a friend who flew recently and they were like, oh, people are sitting in the middle seats on planes now. So there's no more social distancing in such confined spaces. And I'm like, I feel kind of isolated now that I can't travel home because I'm at risk of contracting this virus, which, Theresa, to add to what you said about your father's best friend passing, my dad's best friend passed away this year as well. He was at work. Somebody came to work without a mask and had a fever. He died as a result of it. And it was like, I lost an uncle. And I'm like, if people are going to continue to be this senseless, led by a president who is just as senseless, what is the future state of this country going to be? It just seems like utter chaos. And it's hard not to be anxious about it, to feel some sort of way. So.
Thanks so much, Mignon. And I want to pinpoint two things. Well, first, also my dad's best friend, or one of my dad's best friend, passed away from COVID earlier this year. So it's like, you think to some people, you know, 200,000 plus people doesn't seem like a lot of people, considering there's millions of people living in America. But like everywhere I turn, you know, Mignon has someone who was affected, Theresa, me, all of these people that I know. And somehow it's like that number just seems so much bigger. And so it's just like something to always be conscious of, is like who this really affects. And then another thing I wanted to pinpoint that Mignon said, she mentioned like having an escape plan, or just like starting to think about one. As I sit here like 10 minutes away from the nation's capital, me and my housemates, we actually had a conversation at dinner one night. And my landlord, Lisbeth, she's Puerto Rican, you know, person of color, like is married to my landlady, which is, you know, so they've been married for 20 plus years. And so we just have conversations about all the time how, you know, the Supreme Court confirmation, because I think she's going to be confirmed. You know, what that will look like for them. You know, they've been married for such a long time. What do they have at stake? You know, what rests on them? And they're just a beautiful couple. But anyway, so we were talking about this escape plan, and Lisbeth is from Puerto Rico. So her parents are back there. Most of her family is there. And she was like, Sid, if a civil war were to break out in DC, I'm going to be gone, but I want you to make sure like you have a plan in place. Like, I suggest you get some cash on you, like starting now, because we don't know what this is going to look like. You know, this is DC. There's a lot of people who are not supportive of Trump, but then people are, and they're behind closed doors. So it's like when this election comes, you know, all hell could break loose. Excuse my language, but like that's what we're facing. And I feel like this is going to turn into like the Purge movie, the election year movie. And so I'm just going to think of a way. I mean, I don't know, like Mignon said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hop on a plane and head to New Orleans to visit my family. You know, I don't know what the airport is going to look like, traffic. So it's just something that I have to think about and consider. It's unfortunate, but that's our reality right now. Would anyone else like to share the current question?
I'll share. So I guess I'm kind of the opposite. I feel like with the hurricanes and tropical storms that have been, so y'all know I live in Mobile, Alabama. And so it's like there have been tropical storms and hurricanes. And then I teach. So it's like now all these kids are coming back to school and they are encouraged to wear masks, not required. And so it's like every week it's like something else like I have to think about. And y'all were talking about the election and kind of like the debates. And I was like, well, one of my classes required me to watch the debate. But as you guys were talking, I was like, I haven't even had time to process what's going on in the world around me. Because it's like every week I'm like trying to figure out, okay, now I have a kid who's high risk in my class and I know he lives with his grandparents. How do I make sure this kid is safe, right? I'm going to my sister's baby shower today. How do I make sure that my family is safe, knowing that my brother-in-law tested positive last week, you know? And then it's like all these different things, and it's like I want to be here for that and this, but it's like I've been spread so thin this year and like trying to cope with everything that keeps changing around me that it's like I haven't processed anything at all, you know? And so like I know I should be a lot more worried about it, but the election and, you know, this potential Supreme Court justice, but it's almost like I've accepted my fate in all of this, you know, which is even, I think, more concerning than being worried, right? I'm like, oh, well, I know this is going to happen. This is going to happen. I can wish her the best. But, you know, I've lost so much faith in people, I think is what this is really kind of come down to. And I've been questioning like my own morals and my own values and like, oh, you're still friends with this person knowing they believe this way, right? Like, how could you? This isn't the Dominique you knew 4 years ago that would have gone tooth and nail with someone about something. And now here you are just accepting this is how people are. And I'm like, oh, maybe you've just grown. And it's like, no, I've become complacent, right? And so that's something like that I've been, as you guys were talking, I've been really, really thinking about like, how did I get to this point? And maybe that is like a part of the trauma, you know, like I've become so overwhelmed with everything that I'm not processing and I'm not allowing my brain to go to those dark places. And I think that's my brain trying to protect itself from the reality I'm afraid is going to come true, right? And so like that is something definitely I've been like thinking about and kind of mulling over as we've been talking and listening to you all. Like I have all the same feelings, but my husband and I were talking about this last night. I've been like, recently I've just been very like flatline. And if you guys know me, I'm like a kind of like almost spastic kind of person. But like more recently, I think it's as the election's getting closer and closer, I've realized I've become very mellow. And I think it's my brain and my body, like knowing I'm about to be extremely overwhelmed by the events that are about to come. And it's like, right now you just need peace, you know? And so, I don't know, it's just a weird, weird time. And my body and my brain, I don't think are handling it the way they should, but I think they're doing the best that they can. So I'm just going with the flow of it all. So.
Thanks so much for sharing. And I want to bring in one of our guests on the line. So Asifa Akbar, would you like to share some of your personal experiences with the team?
Yes, hello. I wasn't going to go online because on mic, but I'm really happy to be here. I'm actually in Edmonton, Canada, and you know, I thank God every day. I'm so grateful for being in Canada rather than in the US right now. I have quite a number of friends there, and I can, you know, witness the anxiety that is so strong right now in the US. And a lot of my friends are asking me, you know, how can they immigrate to Canada and things like that. So yeah, I mean, we've been talking about trauma, and you know, there's not just the COVID pandemic that we're dealing with worldwide, but the ongoing scourge of racism that is experienced the world over. I mean, it's very intense in the US and always has been quite overt there, but even in Canada, as the visible minority, as we call it, you know, there's a lot of everyday racism. And I live in one of the most conservative provinces that's kind of been known for having a lot of sort of right-wing elements. And yeah, so I mean, I experience everyday racism here, and we've definitely noticed the spillover effect after your 2016 election. We definitely noticed the intensification of everyday experiences of racism, and it's always been very traumatic. Like I'm originally from South Africa, and I first spent my first 10 years there under apartheid. So I've grown up with this feeling of, you know, being told your place and how you should feel about yourself based on your ethnicity or race. I'm of South Asian background, but yeah, I'm fourth generation South African, Indian, and I've lived most of my life in Canada, but it's something that's plagued me all of my life, and it's something I feel extremely strongly about. So this is why I'm joining this call now, and I want to share with, I want to connect with people worldwide to yeah, it's for personal reasons and just to be there for others as well. So I don't know what else I can say, but I'm also in the a writer and in the legal field. So yeah, our borders are a big concern for us right now, because I mean, we've had a lot of influx of refugees trying to come in from the US, not just US citizens or permanent residents, but people coming from other third countries. And as some may know, that we have this agreement with the US where if a person is a refugee and they are coming from the US into Canada, they won't be allowed in as a asylum seeker because we have a safe third country agreement. So they're supposed to make their claim in the US first. And that's extremely traumatic for a lot of people. I mean, unless there are a few exceptions where they can come in and make a claim here, but if you're coming from the US to Canada, it's virtually impossible. So I feel for those people, and it's just so awful to hear about the situation of children separated from their families and people being and being held in detention in cages in the US and things like that. So, and also we've definitely felt it, and there have been some positive repercussions as well after hearing of all the deaths by law enforcement in the US over the years. I mean, yeah, especially not just with Mr. Floyd's recent, it's hard to talk about those things, but yeah, sorry. So
it's okay, no apologies. We appreciate you for sharing and opening up. Yeah, I mean, it's just been back to back to back to back hit, and Christy, like, it's just there's different ways of coping with these things, and like, I don't know if you have like based on your experience, like, what do you do to just cope with trauma and just try to just maneuver through what you're going through?
First of all, I just want to validate that exactly what you said, that everybody has a different way, or it manifests differently when you're under this tremendous amount of stress and anxiety. I also wanted to validate what Dominique said about how your brain and your body are just trying to do what it needs to do. And that is exactly, I think that was a very insightful statement that you made, because that's exactly what's happening. We are in the middle of collective trauma. I don't know if folks have heard that phrase, but there's been, as this pandemic has been happening, and, racial injustice really, rearing its ugly head this year, and all the other things that compound that, the personal traumas, the personal anxieties, the worries about family and friends, all of these things are so much for all of us to hold, for all of you to hold. And that's why it's so important to have these spaces and these conversations, because that's one of the things that helps, that is a protective factor, is to be, in community with folks who are experiencing some of this, similar feelings, the similar fears, the anxiety. And, while there's so much uncertainty right now about the election, about what's happening with the Supreme Court, and just the pandemic in general, it feels like there's no end in sight. And as we continue to see things unfold through social media, or whatever your choice is of like trying to get your information through the news, it just adds to it. So I like to, and I'm sure a lot of folks know this, is that when you start to feel like things are starting to get overwhelming, especially with the news that's coming in, that, you know, and this is just an invitation that folks can, you know, give yourself permission to tune out. Give yourself permission to take a break from social media. I know it's kind of this pull where we really want to know what's going on. We really want to keep, especially with the election coming up. But I also want to advocate for self-compassion, recognizing that enough is enough sometimes, and that it's okay for us to not know every minute of what, you know, of the new development, or every day even. I mean, even as a therapist, I've had to take a step back from social media because it's too much. There's just too much, you know, excuse my language, just too much shit happening in the world, right? And it's not just happening here. I mean, we're hearing about, you know, as we're talking about collective trauma, this is global collective trauma that we are all, you know, and this is such a unique, uncharted experience, you know, that all of us are having, you know, in this one space and one time. And being able to know who your support people are, who you can rely on, so that you have somebody to externalize and to talk about these fears and anxiety. You know, that's one of the things that, you know, people and connections to people are one of the strongest protective factors, because there's a tendency sometimes when we feel overwhelmed, you know, sometimes we do feel like we want to shut down and we just want to isolate. But that is actually something that can make things worse, because we're just holding it inside. And when we can find those safe, supportive folks to check in with regularly, you know, it helps. Just think about it as kind of this, you know, we're like a vessel. Like, imagine yourself being a cup of water, or, you know, whatever it is. And we're just like getting things left and right, right? Our cups are starting to fill up. And our self-care practices, our connections to the folks in the community, our support people who we trust and love, and all of those other things that we can do to kind of like, just imagine that there's a spigot at the bottom. Those things help release all of the stuff that's gathering up inside. And while we don't see necessarily, we can't predict the future, and we don't see an end to a lot of the things that are happening, because everything, you know, it's so complex. There's so many moving parts. We can take care of ourselves in that way and be able to focus on the things that we can control in our lives, because what's happening all around us, it's so out of our control. And, you know, of course, there are ways to contribute to, you know, trying to be engaged in what's happening in the world, right? And that is also another way of like really trying to feel like, okay, I'm not going to just sit here. Some folks find that engaging in either getting out the vote, or, you know, talking about, you know, whoever it is that they're wanting in office, in terms of like local races, things like that, where you can actually like feel like you're doing something in that area to make change happen. You know, all of those things can be helpful. But I just want to stress that sometimes, you know, I think when we want to shut down, and when we want to self-isolate, that's okay too. When you have to do that in the moment, I think we can be really hard on ourselves. We're like, oh, we should do this, we should do that, oh, I should know better. I really emphasize and encourage self-compassion. It's okay if you have to shut down for a while. That's okay. It's just, you know, let your body, our body has wisdom. It knows what it needs to do in the moment. It's sometimes we just need that little bit of help and encouragement, maybe to get out of that space. It's when we stay in that space for too long where things start to get unmanageable.
Thank you so much, Christy. And as a follow-up, we have a question from one of our guests, Janice Lee. Thank you, Janice, for joining us today. We're so happy to have you on. And she has a question for the panelists. Are there are there any activities that you guys do to help cope with trauma, take your mind off the trauma during this time? Any, you know, fun activities that you do, or hobbies?
I definitely walk my dogs a lot more now, and you know, that's safe. I miss going out. Like, people who knew me in college, I love bars. I love going out to eat. Like, so what my husband and I have started to do, we've started like buying HelloFresh. So it's like, this is like going out, and this is like something I get to pick off a menu. And something else that I've definitely started to do is I've started watching a lot of scary movies. This is my favorite season of the year. But I know, like, when I watch it, my husband's like, how can you watch this all the time? And I'm like, because I know it's not real, you know? And, like, I can control, like, I know this is fake, ha, ha, ha. You know, this isn't really going to happen to me. And so, like, that's, like, something I know I can control. And so that's something I've been incorporating more into my life, too. Like, you know, try to walk with him and my dogs and, you know, order HelloFresh and little things like that. It really helped me get through, like, this weird time.
Awesome. Thanks, Dom.
I can go next. So I'm a part of this meditation / healing group here in LA. One of my really good friends, we've been friends for about a year now. I would call her like a Black guru for sure. She's always advocating breathing and yoga and stretching. So I've gone to a couple of classes that she's had, and she does this healing circle twice a week. And while I don't go regularly, when I do go, it is so relieving. We sit down at a park out here, well, in Baldwin Hills in Inglewood, and there's always a topic for each meeting. And the last meeting I went to, the topic was integrity. So really breaking down what the word means to us, how we can proceed moving forward with integrity, and also really checking in with one another. We start off by saying, oh, this is my stress level. This is the one word I would use to describe it. And then by the end of the meeting, we revisit that and say, okay, what's our stress level now? What's our new word? Or is it the same word? And then in between that, we're just always breaking down our stress and talking to one another and really reflecting on how one another feels. And we have core values that we talk about that we align to. And it is absolutely beautiful and one of the best feelings afterwards when you come out of it, because you just feel so light. And knowing that other people are kind of in the same boat as you, it's relieving. You know, it's like, okay, I'm not the only one that's going through this. Okay, we have this, you know, collective trauma that we're going through, but we know that we have somebody in the fight alongside us, getting through it together. So that's been absolutely beautiful. And one of my favorite moments is my friend Raven. She's really big on music, and especially old school music, just like myself. And when she does her breathing sessions, she always does like a guided meditation with some old school music. So we laid back, the sky was blue. This was the first time the sky was blue after the smoke had cleared from the wildfires. So I was just looking at the sky like, thank you, God, the sky is blue today. And we're listening to oldies. It was the Isley Brothers, Summer Breeze. So Summer Breeze is playing, the sky is finally blue, the breeze is blowing, and I was like, thank you, God. So just having that communal connection with people and really talking about your feelings and being candid about the stress you're experiencing will help tremendously. Because after those meetings, I go into work ready. I'm like, I got this. I'm cooling. I'm ready. I can handle anything that's coming towards me. So I would say definitely find that group of friends or a group of people that you can rely on, who you can talk to about your stress, who you can relate to and be candid with. I would say that's one of the best ways of coping for myself. You should try it.
Thank you so much, Mignon. And before we continue, Dominique has to sign off early, so I just want to thank her for tuning in with us today. And Dom, have the great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Dom.
Thank you, and thank y'all for listening to my stories. Great. Bye.
Take care.
So I'm on two sides of the spectrum. when it comes to coping. So I have my like, you know, I'll sit and I'll FaceTime my friends a lot lately. We've been FaceTiming for like 6 hours. Like we'll watch a movie together and we'll just talk to each other and like we'll make a meal together, stuff like that. But then also I've become an adrenaline junkie. So I cut off like 9 inches of my hair. I dyed it black. I pierced my nose. Last week, 2 days ago, I was having a panic attack, bought a Roomba. I have like completely changed my wardrobe. I have signed up for like all of these different like boxes, like clothing boxes, Ipsy, all this stuff. And it's like, that's the way that I cope, is being like, you know what? I'm just gonna change everything. And I'll never forget calling my stylist and being like, tell me to stop. She goes, Tracy, you don't need to do this. I said, tell me to stop. And I literally was like, I'm doing like, you know, and it's just, that's the way that I cope. And afterwards, I did feel better. Like I feel better. I've gotten like 4 tattoos in 2020. Like, it's just, that's the way that my body is coping with what's going on. But I don't know. Which is bad to say, but I don't regret it. Like, I don't regret anything I've done. It's just maybe I needed that push to be like, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year. So why not? Like, want your hair short? Do it. You want bangs? Do it. You want, you know, just trying things because I don't know what's next. But I do wish I was on the spectrum of meditating. That just seems a little bit more peaceful than needles into your nose. But you know what? Like I said, I don't regret it. I also, I don't know why, but when I like, my panic attacks aren't like, you know, breathing into a bag and popping it. I just know because my heart rate won't go down. Like I develop a fever, like my temperature will genuinely go up by a couple degrees. And when that happens, I will watch TikToks. That's my thing. That's my coping mechanism. So Sharkisha, I love TikTok. We talked about it before. So I think it just depends on what's going on in your life, and that's the way that you can cope. And like, you know, you have specific activities that speak to your body in that time that you need it. But like I said, very different ways depending on what's going on at that time.
Thanks so much, Theresa.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of the TikTok. I also have been like the Hamilton on Disney, the play Hamilton. I probably watched that like 8,000 times. I was actually listening to it today. Like I mean, my husband is like banning me because like if we're going to the grocery store, I'm playing it in the car on the way. If I go in, I like see how many songs I can get while I'm shopping. Like I'll sing along out loud. I don't care who can hear it. And I can't sing. I'm like not being modest. I really can't sing. I just don't care. I've also been watching a lot of like Chopped, and I like rewatched all MasterChef. So it's like it sends me because there's like when I'm home, I'm kind of like I'm always like having something to do or having like a kid to take care of. And I'm actually in school now for like my social work degree. So I have like a ton of schoolwork to do. So I like, it's like perfect for me to do where like I can sing along, it's in the background. Or like if I have the kids like in the middle of the night where I'm nursing or something, I can like pop on my phone and like a couple of videos of TikTok or so. And it does like, it puts me in such a positive space. Like I really love music. Like I love like happy, upbeat music. Like it was, I think before Hamilton, it was the Greatest Showman soundtrack. And it was the Moana soundtrack. I'm not even gonna lie. I love that Moana soundtrack. I've watched that also more times than I care to admit. So, but like if it's upbeat music, it like changes my mood. I literally have to start my day. Like it changes my day if I can start my shower with like a Hamilton soundtrack versus just getting up, taking a quick mom shower, which is like, don't even think about washing your hair, hurry up and get in and out before your son tries to climb in with you. It changes like the whole start of my day. And Starbucks blonde rose, that too. That's like a game changer. It's like key. So yeah.
For me, I think I do things like it depends on my mood. Like if I had a really rough day, I take naps. And then y'all knows like I fall asleep at the drop of a pin. So the other day, like I was just laying on the couch, like scrolling on my phone, and I think she like stepped out to go to the restroom, and then she said as soon as she came back, like I was out like a light. And then like 5 minutes later, we got the call to go up for dinner. We have family dinner twice a week. So naps, like short naps, I can't do like longer than an hour because I feel like, you know, the sweet spot for me is 20 to 30, maybe 45, you know. So naps is one. Music is another one. I'm a big R&B fan, but some of you may not know this. I actually really like Korean R&B. I don't know why, but it's been something that I've really been a big fan of since high school. So I don't know, it's just like another world that I was able to go into, and I finally created a playlist on Spotify for Korean R&B tunes. So I'm happy to share it with you if you're interested. I don't know what they're saying, but I like the music and everything. Another one is I go on rage walks sometimes. So I've started to walk more during the pandemic, and I try to walk between 3 and 4 miles at least twice a week. That hasn't been happening just because like how busy I've been with school and stuff. But this morning, actually, me and my housemates, they have like a neighborhood event that they do every year around Halloween called the Zombie Walk Run, and it's a 5K. So this morning we got up as a household and walked 2 of the 4 dogs that we have because the older ones, you know, they can't keep up anymore. So they can only go for about an hour or so. But we just, you know, went on the walk with the dogs, and it was great. It wasn't as cooler as I thought it was going to be, but it was fine. But just different things like that, I think is helping me to just like keep pushing. So, and if any of our guests want to share what they do, please chime in.
Sid, you have definitely encouraged me to do the rage walks. And the first time you introduced that concept to me, I just imagined you walking down the street like, oh, I'm angry.
Yep.
So every time she does a rage walk, I just burst out laughing. It is just the greatest thing in my head because I'm like, look at Sid, rage walking, making herself feel better. So every time I'm out walking, I'm always smiling because I'm like, Sid would be so proud.
I appreciate that. And something else I thought of was like, I am a really big Zumba person. Like when I'm home, me and my mom always go to Zumba classes. Obviously, they don't have the classes now because of COVID, but so I try to do Zumba a couple of times, like a month, just to, because I'm like a person that remembers like the dance steps, so I can like mimic them and just like have my Spotify, you know, link to the computer, and I just like do Zumba by myself and like, you know, have the music all out. So I do like to dance. So the next topic that I want to venture into is like self-reflection. And I just think self-reflection, acknowledgement, like, you know, just checking in with yourself and seeing how you're doing is very important. And I know for me, I don't take enough time to just like sit quietly with myself and just like really pinpoint how am I feeling at the time, what things do I need to work on, what things have been good. But my question to you guys is, what things do you like or love about yourself?
Can I just jump in really quick, Sydney?
Yeah,
I just want to like say this is so beautiful to hear, you know, all of y'all sharing your self-care practices, because it gives inspiration. You know, I'm seeing that energy and everybody's just kind of feeding off of each other. And I also love, Theresa, how unapologetic you are about like your self-care, because that's what we need to be. We are resilient. We're resilient. You know, we've been through a lot. We're going through a lot. And it's just beautiful to see the resilience in the room and just to feel it. Because, you know, we're in these like little boxes. We've been, you know, kind of pulled away from these, you know, in-person spaces. But I consider myself an empath. I could just feel the energy and I could see the expressions on your faces. And this is, you know, this is exactly what it's about. It's about like sharing, having these exchanges, having these shared experiences, and kind of learning and growing with each other.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Christy.
So it's funny that you say that because so I started going to therapy like intensely, probably like beginning of 2019, and I love therapy. Like, I don't know if it works for everybody, but it works for me. I'll say it like that. And that was one of the things that we worked on because I have body dysmorphia. So I don't really know what I look like. It's a very weird situation. So we talked about it first, you know, talking about what you love about yourself on the inside, because at least on the inside, you know what it is and you can sense it, even though you don't really know what you look like in a way. And that was something that I said, because I've been through such weird things in my life. And I was like, whatever happens, I bounce back. Like, I always bounce back. And that's the way that my parents raised me. Like, I've never said, you know, this is terrible. Like, you know, I'm just going to give up. I'm like, keep going. Like, always bounce back. I have a tattoo of the saying mountains and valleys. So it's like, you know, everybody has their highs and lows. If you're on a high, you're going to have a low. Like, get ready for it. It's going to happen. But, you know, I love that, you know, I've never given up, and I love that I'm a good friend, but also something that I'm learning to love about myself is that I'm starting to be less defensive. I used to, like, I was not perfect in grade school and middle school. And like, one of my best friends has beautiful curly hair, but when I was younger, I made fun of it. I didn't know. You know, it was one of those experiences. I had no idea what I was doing. This is my hair naturally. So someone that has Shirley Temple curls, I'm like, I don't even know how to explain it. So I always talked about it. And, you know, growing up in 2020, her and I had this long talk about, you know, the traumatization that happened to her when she was little because people talked about how curly her hair was, versus me now not being defensive and saying, well, I didn't know. It's learning to say, like, I'm sorry that I did that to you. What can I do next? And I think 2020 is either helping people in that way or showing who is not ready to grow and adapt. And, you know, I think adaptability is a really strong asset that we need to have right now. And if you are not ready to be adaptable and you're not ready to hear out other people in the way that you may have hurt them, you know, you need to grow up yourself. You need to be willing and able to, you know, hear what you've done to others and grow from that situation.
Awesome. Thank you, Theresa.
I can go next. I would say the thing that I love about myself is my demeanor. I would definitely say I'm a mild-mannered, calm person pretty much all the time. And I'm so thankful for that, because I can be in a tough situation or something like similar, and, you know, I really stop, analyze what's going on before I make any sort of rash decisions. And I feel like that emotional intelligence or ability for just me knowing who I am and how I react to situations, I am so thankful for that. Knowing already, okay, this is who Mignon is. This is how she reacts in these situations, and just being so aware of what's going on and having that ability to discern, okay, map out the room, figure out my actions, and just really think about things holistically. So my demeanor and ability, well, I would say my demeanor and emotional intelligence are two things that I really do appreciate about myself. Sure.
Thanks, Mignon.
I will say what I do like about myself is, because it was a journey to get here, is just that I am unapologetically myself. Like, I kind of am a weird, zany person, and I know that. Like, I don't fit into any box. And, you know, when I was younger, like, my mom made fun of me a lot for my personality. And I struggled with that. So I used to try to feel like I had to hide parts of who I am, or I had to conform to fit in certain situations, social situations. And I no longer do that. I just feel like this is who I am. and the right people will just find me, and then those will be my people. And if I am too much for you, then I'm not your people. So I've just grown into that, and I'm just, it makes my life so much easier, because when you don't have to like constantly worry about like what other people are thinking or how they're viewing you or if they're judging you or not, it's just liberating. It's so freeing. So I love that about me. Yeah, I'm just me. Yeah.
Yay, Sharkisha. I think for me, my mom always says that I've heard this from my mom and several others, that I'm an old soul. And so I've like had some time to think about that. And I think that is true. And I don't know if it's like this like wisdom that I got from my grandma, because like me and my grandma are literally twins in personality, except that she's like pettier and more like, you know, she'll say whatever's on her mind. And I act the same in some instances, but like my facial expressions often give off like how I'm feeling. But I also consider myself an empath. I'm a Scorpio. My mom's a Scorpio. My birthdays are a week apart. And so just like as I have moved away and as I'm apart from her, I see a lot of myself in her. Just like her demeanor, like the things she'll say. And it's kind of scary, because I'm like, am I becoming my mother? And I also just think I'm really proud of how easygoing I can be. And I just want to make people feel welcome and just seen. And so like in undergrad, I would host like a lot of stuff at my apartment and stuff. And they're always like, oh, Sid, you know, she's going to make sure that everyone's taken care of. Like she goes around, you know, are you fed? Are you good? Like, you know, just making sure that everybody's good to go. And then I think my mom's like belief in the Holy Spirit, just like really strong spirituality, has also helped me to just kind of think about, you know, how I'm treating other people or how I'm perceiving myself. As like I'm very insecure. I was always insecure. I used to get bullied in elementary school, and I have eczema, so I used to get bullied by that too. And just like having my mom say, you know, the Holy Spirit is always there. Whenever you need, just call on it. And so that's like something that I really try to like ingrain in myself, like just making it like second nature to just call on the Holy Spirit, especially when I'm feeling stressed. Like, and then she encouraged me to put the sign on my desk. So like when I'm working during school or internship, I look at the sign and says, calm, compassion, patience, Holy Spirit, please be with me. And so that's been really like reassuring for me to just constantly look at that. So thank you guys for sharing. Okay, so my next question is actually for Christy. So as a therapist, you actually used to work in journalism. And so how has that trajectory, like coming from journalism to being a therapist, is there any overlap, or what was the inspiration with the transition?
Yeah, thanks for allowing me to share that, you know, for sharing that piece of myself, because I often get that question. It's like, what? You used to be a journalist? What are you doing as a therapist? I mean, there are some skills that are definitely were transferable. You know, being able to connect with folks, talk with people. You know, I think the interviewing, that skill set, and just like communicating with folks. You know, I'm using it in a different way. Back when I was a journalist, it was all about like, you had kind of this focal point, right? Or focus of the story, and you kind of asked questions to elicit answers that would kind of fit, you know, that story and that narrative. And so I've kind of taken that and, you know, transformed it. Obviously, it's more of like trying to hear, you know, the person's authentic story, letting them be their authentic self, and just, you know, serving as a guide. So when I left journalism officially in 2010. So I was a journalist for almost a decade. I worked with the Filipino channel most of my career, which it's an ethnic media station. It's a conglomerate in the Philippines. So this was like their North American bureau. And it allowed me to learn about my community here, because I was covering issues and things that were important to the Filipino Filipinx community in different parts of the Bay Area. I even got to travel to LA. And then as I was going through my career, I was happy. You know, oftentimes we get stuck. So I ended up getting stuck at one point and kind of having my own sort of like mental health crisis. That's definitely because of trauma that I had. I think sometimes people ask, like, how do you end up as a psychologist, how do you end up in the mental health field? You know, oftentimes, and this isn't true of everyone, but if you talk to someone personally about their story, oftentimes there's trauma attached. And trauma is actually very common, you know, unfortunately. It's a common human experience. And so I was having my own sort of issues and really sought out in the community, my local community, ways to kind of, I think I mentioned earlier, oh wait, there's a little bit of noise in the background. Okay. So I really tried to reach out, and instead of, you know, kind of just focusing myself, I went outward to try to find a group in my community that focused on Filipino mental health. And so I think it's because at the time when I was a journalist, I just felt what drew me into journalism was this idea of being able to tell people's stories, to tell their narratives. And really in my mind, in my very idealistic mind back then, was that I can, like, you know, affect change by giving voice to people who don't have that platform. And, you know, being Filipinx, you know, being part of a marginalized community, I felt that, you know, this was my calling to be able to do that. And so when I end up having my little crisis, well, I shouldn't say little, having my mental health crisis, I sought out ways to kind of give back and to help. And that's how I found the Filipino Mental Health Initiative of San Mateo County, because I wanted to be able to, at the time I wasn't ready to share my story, but I wanted to be able to turn kind of like the pain that I went through into something productive to help other folks and to let them know that they're not alone. You know, in terms of like the mental health issues, I was suffering from depression, anxiety, PTSD. So I, complex PTSD, which isn't in our DSM-5, which is like, you know, the Western medical model manual that tells you all those labels. I have a lot to say about that, but I won't save that for another time. But yeah, so I was going through all of those things, and basically it led me to where I am today, which is, instead of sharing people's narratives in that, you know, and I respect journalists so much, especially during this time where we really need, you know, somebody shining a light in these really dark times. But for me, that kind of shifted for me, and I wanted to be able to not just tell people stories, but actually like provide a direct service to trying to help folks restory their narrative, because oftentimes we have a narrative that's been, you know, things in our narrative that have made us feel stuck. And so I wanted to help people see their potential, see like the beauty and resilience of who they are and of their experience, and to kind of transform and help change that into something that makes them realize like just how truly beautiful and how truly productive, and, you know, to open up those worlds of possibilities for folks. And so I'm much happier in the space that I am now. But as you can see, I'm very connected to Michelle, so I haven't let that journalism side go yet. I still love that side. So this is my way of, like, being a part of this community is my way of staying engaged with that.
That's awesome. And then I have one more follow-up question for you, Christy. So as a therapist now in this COVID-19 era, how has that been for you, and just having to focus on family and your personal life? Yeah, how has that been for you?
It's like all of you, it's been a challenge. It's very challenging because I have a 9-year-old who, you know, is doing the distance learning. And for folks who've experienced that, it's like, yes, we're all like, you know, trying to figure out things as they unfold and as they go. Not only as, you know, is it hard for my child, and it's hard for all kids. My kid's neurodivergent, and what that means is, you know, different learner. If you want to put a label on it, it's ADHD. I'm also neurodivergent. And so I have ADD. They don't call it that anymore. They call it ADHD, inattentive type. But, you know, for me, it's like I've always had processing issues. And so to move therapy into this format, which, you know, obviously it's to keep everybody safe, it's just been a challenge, you know, kind of in the beginning to transition into that, because it's not like being in a room with the client or with the student. It's a different experience, and it's different for them as well. You know, there's different dynamics involved. So that was really a challenge, because I was starting to have some of my processing issues come up because I'm staring at a screen, you know, I'm trying to follow, and with one-on-one, it's a little bit easier, but in my community advocacy work, you know, we have meetings with community, and oftentimes I facilitate, and sometimes I have a hard time like keeping up with the boxes. So I started becoming, you know, critical of myself and being very hard on myself, like, you know, kind of falling back to the thinking of, well, you know, I'm not like neurotypical folks, you know, I may not be able to follow along and be able to kind of dovetail what they're saying into something that's, you know, productive. But then I kind of had to slow down, and what I was saying about self-compassion and radical self-acceptance and all of those things about like being kind to myself and realizing it's okay to have limitations, right? It's okay to be who I am. And so, you know, that this experience has really, it kind of goes back to what THERESA was saying, is like, it makes you look at yourself and be like, am I ready to grow? Am I ready to grow from this experience and not, you know, not feel like I'm being victimized, but really trying to learn, you know, about my strengths and to really make that something that motivates me. And so while there have been a lot of challenges around the homeschooling and juggling work, I know I'm not the only one. A lot of folks, I am a big supporter of an advocate of support groups. I'm in several, even if it's just, you know, these types of spaces. I'm in my community, we have support groups, but I also, you know, online support groups, because then when we don't feel alone in what we're experiencing, and I'm a member of a few of the kind of like ADHD, neurodivergent folks, those groups, you know, you get to read and talk about the things that you're struggling with during this time. And like I said, it makes you feel that much more supported, and you do grow and learn about yourself and realize, well, I guess I'm not the only one feeling this way. There are other folks out there that are feeling exactly the same thing. So that's very inspiring and supportive.
Thank you so much for sharing, Christy. And for our other panelists, like, how has the juggle with work life, personal life, all of those things have been for you? Like, are you guys back in your offices? Are you working from home? Are you doing a combination of both? Like, how has that been for you?
So I now work from home permanently. I've become a regional recruiter. This was in the works a year ago. So is it because of COVID? But I think my you know, boss finally agreed upon it. Kind of a silver lining, I guess, of COVID is that, you know, they saw that I could efficiently work from home, and they saw that I, you know, did what I could do. They could trust me, because I worked from home from May to July, and then July I made the move to Chicago. So now I permanently work from home. I will say it is, it's kind of hard to find that work and personal life balance, because my apartment isn't that big. I don't have enough space for like a room that's exactly an office space. So my desk is in the middle of my living room. And which is also where I work out because I'm not comfortable going back to a gym yet. So it's like I finish work, which is great. I have a standing desk, another positive. So I like put my desk away and then I work out, and then I finish working out, and in the same room I watch TV. So it's been kind of hard to separate everything. I agree. I've been going on walks and just trying to, you know, not necessarily get out of the apartment, but just, you know, even if it's just like going and doing laundry, just doing something to get out for a second. But yeah, the transition hasn't been the best or the easiest for me. And my boyfriend and I are looking at an apartment where we could have an office space just for our mental health. Honestly, like I would pay for it. I would rather pay a couple $100s a month more if that means that I could have a space that can, you know, help me mentally and physically, and help him, and just kind of, because unfortunately, it's not like this is going to go away on election day like people think. You know, that's not what's going to happen. People are projecting that this will be around until 2022 because of the way that we aren't handling it well. Chicago has 500 new cases a day. So, you know, if that means, like I said, spending a couple more $100 a month just to be able to help myself mentally and emotionally, I'm more than willing to do it at this point. So.
That's awesome, Theresa.
I can go. So as far as work with the program that I'm in, it's pretty much working from home anyway. So that didn't really change too much. But I can't go into hospitals as often as I used to be able to do my job, to actually talk to customers and sell devices to hospitals. I can't do that. Some customers are accepting people, but it's really put it in perspective to me that because I'm in the program that I'm in, I'm not necessarily dependent on commission right now. I just have a regular salary that can afford, you know, the regular salary. But if I were to be off the program and actually out there fully selling devices to hospitals, I would be, you know, trying to live off of commission. Of course, they pay a pretty good base salary, but I mean, it's not enough to live in California strictly off of that. You need the commission. So I'm just so thankful that I'm in this program that I'm in, because I see the people at my job and they've been having layoffs left and right. And so it's been so hard to do my job of helping people out and like doing that internal support role when everybody's getting fired around me. And I'm just here, the brand new little fresh out of college employee, like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then everybody's getting fired. And it's like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm so sorry. And it's like them trying to go into hospitals and sell. And you would think that COVID would be booming for the healthcare industry, but only for a part of it. There are no elective surgeries. There are no regular, you know, imaging appointments. No, nothing like that. So it's like our business just took a complete decline, and we're starting to kind of pick business back up a little bit, but it's just been so hard seeing my teammates who I work with, like, I'm not meeting my number this year. Like, numbers, like, it's terrible. I'm trying to make it work and, you know, live off of some money that I have saved up. And it's so hard to see how it's just been impacting people. And I'm trying to keep the morale up when I'm doing my job and trying to be that chipper, cheery, positive person that I usually am. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, everybody around me is going through this tough time. So that's been a bit challenging. And Theresa, when I tell you, spend that extra money to get an office. I'm in my office now, and it's like my desk is right here, my boyfriend's desk is over there. And when it's time to close the door, doors close, work is in here. I have fun in my living room or in my room or in my kitchen area. It's like day and night. I made sure that I knew that I was going to be working from home more, so I needed to separate that, because it's so easy to let work consume your life, especially with what I do. Since I am working from home, I'm accessible pretty much 24/7. So having to set those boundaries for myself and my coworkers, saying, look, at 5 o'clock, that's when the work day ends, and that's when my work phone stays put. That's where it goes on silent. You know, if it's urgent, you can reach me, but, you know, setting those hard boundaries for yourself and making sure that work stays in here and the rest of my life is outside of my office. That's extremely important to keep everything separate. And yeah, just COVID's been tough, you know, how it's been affecting everybody in their jobs, and constantly wondering, well, am I still gonna have my job? And they were like, okay, you're safe for 18 months, but after that, we don't know what to tell you. So just having that constant fear looming in the background that, what if I lose my job? What am I gonna do? Will I have to move all the way back to New Orleans in this case? Or, you know, will I be able to find another job in LA? It's like things that are really far-fetched that I probably shouldn't be thinking about, but they're still in the back of my mind churning, like, okay, what's gonna be your plan? What's gonna be your next steps? Or have you prepared yourself for, you know, some, you know, terrible circumstances and things like that? So this year has been a whole lot of what if, and especially around work and knowing what to expect next. You know?
Yes, I relate to that a lot, especially because I'm still in grad school. So, you know, it's just a matter of staying positive and just continuing to do what I'm doing and just constantly reassuring myself that I am enough. So thank you so much for sharing, Mignon. Sharkisha, would you like to go?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I am a stay-at-home mom, so I don't really work. So that's kind of hasn't really changed much. I did, prior to the pandemic, I did used to volunteer as a translator for the Spanish refugees that would come in, just because they don't, you know, just to get them like assessed and like streamlined in and go over like if they are being abused or if there's anything that they need addressing. But I haven't, when I got pregnant with my daughter, that kind of slowed down for a bit, and now with the pandemic, I just haven't really done that at all, really. The one thing that has changed for me is that I do write, and my husband, he works in the prison, and he's been picking up a ton of extra hours because people have been getting sick. So he'll be gone from 5 in.the morning till midnight. So it's just me home with the kids, so that I've just not been able to maybe do as much as I would normally like to do. Or I like to set aside a block of time where I can just be creative and just write. And I haven't been able to do that. And typically I do have an office space. We're kind of still settling into our house. So I have my office space, but it's not completely set up yet. So, but it is like a game changer. Like if you can step into that, at least for me, when I step into that room, I'm able to separate from the house, separate from the kids, and I can not be mom, not be wife, and not be caretaker, and just kind of like be my own independent person and just like allow for free flow. And I kind of need that. I need to like shut everything off, because when I get into my writing, I kind of like, it's like it's a part of me. Like I lose myself in it and I just lose track of time, and I need that. And I can't really do that with like a ton of interruptions or like being needed or being asked or the dog's barking. So I like second workspace. It's like, it's a game changer. You need it.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of been a challenge because I have an office in my room now. Not an office, a desk in my room now. But before, like last semester in the spring, I was working at our kitchen table. Like that's like in between the living room and the kitchen. And it was easier because, you know, I did my work at the table, then I was able to escape to my room to like take a nap or watch TV or whatever. But now, since my desk is in my room, I find it hard to separate myself from doing work, because in high school and in college, and this still stays true, that I am an overworker. You know, I like to get stuff done. I hate procrastinating, and I'm a night owl. So I feel like most productive at night. So, you know, 2 a.m. in the morning, I'm on my laptop, just like typing away or just like, you know, doing these things. So I know that in some cases, well, actually in a lot of cases, it's not healthy. But like, that's how I am. But I'm trying to find more balance and saying, okay, you know, I'm going to cut off like working, you know, this time of night so I can go to bed, get some sleep. And so it's just been like an ongoing challenge for me. It's just trying to, you know, just satisfy that craving to want to work, but like, self-care. So okay, so we have, let's see. Oh, Michelle says that's why I can always reach you, Sid. Yeah, so a lot of times, she's in California, so the time difference is 3 hours away. So I'm always up, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't know that you would reply." It's like, yeah, I'm up late. So, but yeah, blessing and a curse for being a night owl. So, so my final question to you guys, to all the panelists. Are there any parting words that you would like to say for viewers? Any words of encouragement or positivity, just to encourage people to keep pushing forward? And anyone can go first.
I don't mind. So I just like to encourage people, because I actually, I'm a life coach as well, but I like to encourage people to, well, just stay positive, but try to consciously connect with people that, like good people. Surround yourself with supportive people, and to think independently and critically. So if you get a barrage of negative information, just separate yourself from not just negative information, but negative environments, and just pause, reflect, and think critically and independently, and don't accept everything that you hear. And so that's it for now.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I'd like to go. I just want to say, especially with the current climate, the way the world is right now, it looks really negative. But if you do take a step back and look at, a lot of the young people are, standing up and fighting back. And I think that is really indicative of where the world is headed. That next generation is, not okay with the status quo, and they are not accepting it. So even though there's a lot of hatred and vitriol and racism, I do believe that that's kind of dying out, because this younger generation is a lot more woke, or, they're more aware, they're more educated, they're looking to see for themselves what things are, and they're doing their research. And I think that for this upcoming generation, it's just really great to know that, change is definitely coming. So if you start getting really pessimistic, just remember that they're on their way out. They're clearly on their way out, and great things are on the horizon.
That's awesome. The best is yet to come.
I can go. So my word of advice, or words of advice, would definitely be to focus on the little things, or appreciate the little things. So like I said earlier, when I was saying that I was at the healing circle and I was like, wow, the sky is blue. That's something that's super simple, but I was just so thankful for it. But it was because I took the time to slow down, pay attention, and appreciate something like that I don't usually look at or, say thank you for. It's so important. I was walking down the street the other day on my rage walk, and I smelled somebody cooking barbecue, and I was like, wow, it just took me back. It kind of smelled like my mom's red beans, but also smelled like this old barbecue place in Jamaica when I was there. So just taking the time to feel the breeze on your face and smell the smells around you, look at the colors and the things, and just be appreciative of all the little things that we take for granted. It's we might be upset and pissed off that we're in the house all day, but we're in a house. We have things to look at, to be things to entertain us. We have 4 walls protecting us from the storms outside. Not everybody has that. So just taking the time to slow down, be appreciative of what we have and what we, with all the things that are around us, it'll really help you get through this terrible time, because it looks bad, but hey, I just saw a hummingbird outside. So, wow, I'm thankful. It made me happy. So, just really taking the time to appreciate the little things in life will get you through all the tough stuff, for sure. Look how cute.
Oh my God.
See, little things in life.
I think it's perfect to kind of segue off of that is something that I'm starting to do either like when I wake up or when I go to bed is like affirmations. And I think it's like really good to start young as well. But my best friend kind of, you know, said, for a long time I've been doing grounding exercises. I've been doing that with like panic attacks and situations, but affirmations. So I'll do I'm safe, I am loved, I am, and then fill in the blank, whatever that blank is. So like the most common one, especially in 2020, is healthy. So I'm safe, I am loved, I'm healthy. But you know, if I had a bad day or if I feel like you know, neglected or anything, I could say, I am safe, I am loved, I am kind. I'm safe, I am loved, I am smart. And, you know, starting with, you know, I am safe, I am loved, no matter if that love is just coming from you, at least you know that you are loved, because there's so much going on right now that, you know, I don't know, if someone's watching this on YouTube later, like, I love you. That, you know, if you need to hear it from someone, love you. But if you know you're the person that's got your back the most, then tell yourself that you are loved by yourself. Because, you know, not everybody has supportive families and friends. Some people move to a new city completely alone and scared, and, you know, they cut off their family because it's toxic. So, you know, starting your day by saying, I am safe, I am loved, I am ready, even that, you know, just start your day by affirming that the day is going to be okay.
Yeah, my mom is a huge believer in affirmations, and like I, as a kid, you know, just like watching her repeat it constantly and having it ingrained in my mind, but I see how it works. And so I've started to develop that. And I like what Mignon said, appreciating the little things, celebrating the small wins, like having gratitude and centering yourself in gratitude, I think makes a huge difference. And then, Christy, I just wanted to see if you had any parting words of wisdom or advice for the group.
Yeah, I think it's all so wonderful, like what everybody is practicing. I think what I want to leave with people is that there's no one right way to be during this pandemic, and that, and, you know, in this climate that we're in of uncertainty, and heightened, you know, injustices, you know, to connect with people regularly, to practice, you know, self-compassion. And sometimes we can be, as I mentioned before, we can be hard on ourselves, and we should ourselves all the time. Like, I should be doing this. I should not feel this way. And, you know, sometimes it's okay to not know in the moment where you want to be or what you want to do or what needs to happen next. It's part of being human. And then, you know, we always kind of flip the script. We find ways to flip the script, and we dig down into that resilience that we have, and we always find it. And that's what's wonderful about the human spirit, is that we're so resilient. You know, we've been through so much, and we are finding ways to take care of ourselves, in the ways that speak to us, and the ways that our body understands what is right for us. And also to find ways to, all of y'all are doing this, but externalize regularly. Whether it's, when I say externalize, I just mean let it out. Whether it's through talking to someone, movement, you know, dancing, singing. You know, I'm Filipinx, we love karaoke. Love to sing and let it out. You know, you're actually, when you're vocalizing, you're I don't know if anyone's familiar with the vagus nerve. You know, the vagus nerve, that's kind of like exercising that. Our vagus nerve is like the nerve that runs through our body, that, you know, when we do exercises around that, which is what a lot of folks are doing, that kind of helps like calm us, ground us, make our bodies, bring us back into our bodies. And then I just want to say, yeah, always remember that you can, to connect, always remember to connect with someone, kind of what Asifa said, right? Find those safe, supportive folks and check in with them regularly.
Thank you, Christy. And before we wrap up, I want to turn it over to Shade's founder and publisher, Michelle FITZHUGH-CRAIG.
You're muted. Story of our lives. It's okay.
Okay, I'm new here. Thank you. Everyone, I was saying, Sydney, but everybody, Dominique, who I think has gone to THERESA, SHARKISHA, MIGNON, Christy for, stepping in, getting up early and helping us through this and just being there for, everybody in case we needed something. I also, is she still on? Yes. Asifa, who didn't mean to be on, was just joining us as a guest. We kind of roped her, and no, she had some things that were interesting, so I invited her to talk and share too. So thank you so much for doing that, because we want to invite other people in. Yes, if they want to be a part of the conversation, we'd love to have you a part of it, not just through questions. So I'm glad you joined us today. Thank you. If you have any questions that come to mind later, if you have ideas for future topics, and or if you would like to become a part of the Shades team or a member of EWIP, please contact us at infoshadesmagazine@gmail.com, or you can DM us at any of our social media platforms. I just want to mention now, not to bring back down, the elections are coming up. We do have an elections guide. You can find that. You can find more information about our Real Talk crew at shadesmagazine.com, and other things we're working on, our COVID mental health series, and gives you a lot of information, stories, shares that are, really, we have found to be helpful, interesting, something, some people didn't know. So we encourage you to check all those things out. A final reminder, today's discussion was recorded and will be uploaded for viewing, sharing, beginning Tuesday, which is the 27th, is that right? Additionally, the opinions, viewpoints, and our personal endorsements expressed in any published audio or video content, so today's webinar, are those of the individual only and do not necessarily represent the views of Shades Magazine or Women in Periodical Publishing, Exceptional Women in Publishing. So thank you again, and you can take it away, Sydney.
Thank you, Michelle. And lastly, I just like to, I like to end with the uplifting quote to wrap everything up. And so I found this quote online. It's from Unknown, so I'm not sure who said it, but I thought it was really meaningful. So it says, "Life has taught me that I am not always in control. Life is full of experiences, lessons, heartbreak, and pain, but it has also shown me love, beauty, possibility, and new beginnings. Embrace it all. It makes us who we are, and after every storm comes a clear sky." So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. And I know the panelists and I were going to stay back for a few minutes just to chat. But everyone have a great weekend. And thank you, Christy, for joining us and sharing your story. And but yeah, you're an amazing addition to the conversation. So we appreciate you.